And for this next lesson, this one's going to be about tobacco and the effects that tobacco has on the body. So tobacco, nicotine, things like that, the effects it has on the body. And the grade level target on this one is, I put down 7th through 10th because I think that as you get older in high school, it might be a little bit beneath them. 10th maybe a little bit close to pushing it. 7 and 8 for sure, and I think you could use it in a 9 and 10 classroom as well. The student objectives for this lesson is students will be able to identify the different ways that tobacco affects the body. Students will be able to identify what makes tobacco addictive. And then students will be able to identify what are some health effects of prolonged tobacco use. So I would come into the class and have the students start the day, and right away I would do the think, pair, share activity. So they'd come in, good morning class, it's good to see all you guys. Right now I want you to get out a piece of paper and a pencil, and if you could write on a few of these questions right here. If I was in a classroom, I'd have the questions on the board, but questions are, what do you guys know about tobacco? What do you think about tobacco? Like, what are your opinions on it? If you feel comfortable, have you ever had any experiences with tobacco yourself? Or have you ever seen somebody using it or experiencing it? This could be somebody in the family, a friend, maybe some person at the restaurant next to you was smoking a cigarette and it annoyed you. Anything that's kind of an open-ended question. And if you guys could just take your time to write your thoughts on this. So students would write their thoughts, collect everything, get it written on a tangible sheet of paper, and then I would go in and I'd say, okay, students, if you can pair up with the person next to you and just talk about what you wrote. You can read it word for word, or you can just kind of discuss what you wrote. So give the students a little bit of time to talk about what they wrote amongst each other in little small groups, and then I would come back and I'd say, is there any groups out there that feel comfortable sharing anything that they wrote down? Anybody?
When I think of tobacco, you talk from such a young age that it's about cigarettes and how you can get lung cancer, but I think nowadays it's getting more than that. You got chewing tobacco, which I think is kind of like the new cigarettes, or at least in our generation. So, some ideas you have about is you maybe get buzz from it, or cigarettes calm you down, or whatever. You get a little high, whatever. So people do it for those reasons, but it's very addictive.
Okay. So now what I would do is I'm just going to show you my laptop. I would have this note sheet right here for the students to go through, and it would be not filled in. This one would be the teacher copy for me, so it would be not filled in. So I'd have the different sections. The brain would be there with this not filled in, heart, this wouldn't be filled in, lungs, this wouldn't be filled in, skin, and so on and so forth. And this goes down for a couple pages there. And I'd go then into a guided note section. So I would lecture, and they could take guided notes. And the reason I chose guided notes for this lesson is because it just makes it easier. That way, the students are going to have very similar notes, because I'm going to have a master copy and they're going to have their copy, and it's going to follow the exact same template. So that when it comes down to assessing tobacco, it's going to be a lot easier, because I know what they have written down and what they have taken away from the lecture, so I'm going to be able to assess it more accurately. So I'm just going to go through really quick a little demonstration of how the lecture would go. And again, if I was in an actual classroom, I would probably have the sheet in my hand, or I'd have it on a PowerPoint or something like that. I don't have the capability here though. So the first section, if you guys could take out the sheet that I just passed out to you guys, the first section, as you can see, is called tobacco effects on the body. And the first one is brain. And we talked about some of the addictive properties that tobacco can have. And that addictive property specifically is called nicotine. And nicotine causes a chemical release in the brain that makes tobacco users crave more tobacco. So nicotine actually goes right up in your brain and causes a chemical release that makes you want more. And that's what causes it to be addicting. So again, moving forward, next one we got heart right there. So arteriosclerosis is something that makes the heart work harder to pump blood. That's when your arteries thicken a little bit, and the extra stress to the heart to make it work harder to pump the blood, that's what leads to the high blood pressure. And we've talked about high blood pressure in this class. High blood pressure leads to a lot of other heart diseases, stroke, heart attack, anything that you can think of. It can be a result of high blood pressure. High blood pressure is a warning sign for being a high risk at that. And number 3, we have lungs. So this is what you think about right away. When you think about smoking, you think about the lungs because that's where the smoke is going in. And smoking blocks the airways. It impairs the lungs, and it increases the risk of lung cancer and other respiratory diseases just because you're building up a lot of stuff in your lungs and you're making it harder to breathe. And we know that tobacco is a known carcinogen, so that's where the cancer causing part comes from. So I'd go through the rest of this little lecture here, and they'd take their guided notes, and then I'd have an exit card at the end of the lesson that they would be able to write a little bit on something that they learned, little informal assessment, just so I could see how effective the lesson was, and that would be that.